So the
There
first
we
thing
go.
I'll do, Stephen, just before we begin our actual conversation, first of all, I will say a big thank you to you once again for joining us, and it really is a pleasure to have you here with us today. Very, very grateful for you making the time to share your life experiences, your journey, your experiences connecting with spirit, so many of these things as a form of service to others. So the first thing is thank you very, very much for that.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be in your company, and also in in the hope that other people can get something of from this. It's
Absolutely, they will. I'm sure they will. And for our audience, I will say, just so that people know what's going on, especially if they're hearing about you for the first time, I will say, guys, that today, this is episode 495, I believe, as long as I haven't lost count there, of the Simply Inspired channel. And as you can see, I'm joined by the acclaimed medium, Stephen Trolland, today, who will be speaking with us about his inspiring life journey, his connection with spirit, the demonstrations, services, teaching, all of the different things that he does as a widely recognized medium. As I may have mentioned, Stephen, when we were talking just now, I really enjoy your presence, your energy, your gentleness, and your means of delivery. And I really feel that today we will touch some people's hearts and souls with the wisdom that we share. And I will also say for our audience that although today is partly Stephen's own story and partly the bigger picture, I guess you can say, of spiritualism or connection with the divine, however we determine that, there will be some things that you can take away, whether it's directly from the relatability of Stephen's experiences or, as I've said, from the knowledge and wisdom. And I will also say, lastly, that when you're listening to this, everyone, it really doesn't matter where you are on the path, whether you are just beginning to explore some of these things, whether you're a seasoned veteran, shall we say, of spiritual matters, if that's the right word, whether you're somewhere in the middle. We're not saying that you have to follow any particular path, but hopefully we're opening your hearts and minds to connection with the divine, connection with spirit, the fact that there is more to this life than we may realize. And from there we will see where this takes us. So, Stephen, once again, absolute pleasure. Now, as I mentioned, in terms of your own life really and your own experiences, I would like to start at the beginning. It's a matter of perspective, but in terms of your upbringing and where you originally come from, and really, this is just to set the scene, to set the context of everything that will follow. Because it would be nice to hear about where this began for you, and obviously, of course, where your first experiences with spirit also began. But let's just start with where you're from, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm in the beautiful Highlands of Scotland, a place called Aviemore, just at the bottom of the Cairngorm Mountains, which is a ski resort. And believe it or not, we had snow on the hills there just the other day. So it's a little bit brisk here, but it's nice. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. So pure and raw. Yeah, I couldn't live anywhere else, as you can tell by the tie.
Yes, indeed, there is a clue. There is a clue there. Yes, but I was just leave that up to you to say. But yes, there is a little giveaway. Wonderful. Now, I suppose something I'd like to touch on here is that it's a beautiful part of the world where you are. Community, connection to nature, connection to the natural world, peace, quiet, harmony. These kinds of things. Do you think that growing up there played any kind of role in your awareness, or is that just an entirely separate thing?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, all those years ago, I didn't really realize it at the time. But when I was in competition, I used to compete for Britain in snowboarding. And say, for example, when I was going through like a difficult time of because the politics that were involved during those times, I guess, was harder for me than the actual competing, and like finances and sponsorships and when I just couldn't find a way out, I just had nowhere else to look, nowhere else to go in my mind. Just couldn't see the way out. Where, for example, um, for the financial side of things, it's like the whole village got together, even sometimes without me knowing it or certainly not asking, and creating fundraising events to um, give me enough funds to be able to go to Europe and travel around Europe to compete in snowboarding, for example. And of course, the financial stuff that was involved in that is like so much, like snowboards, bindings, boots, the actual wax itself just cost lots and lots of money. So the money that was created, for example, from the local village, I used to get the deals and sponsorship. I didn't get them all for free. So I'd buy my boards and I'd do all this kind of stuff and get the wax and whatnot. But then I was still left with nothing to travel with. And it's like 2 weeks to go, and I'm supposed to be going off to France. I got nowhere or nothing, no money or nothing, and trying to find sponsorships at the times. But then I would go for a run because I was an athlete at the time. I'd run up the mountains. There's beautiful waterfalls where I used to go to, or even just along the side of the rivers. And during that time, I guess it's a kind of meditative experience because the breath is involved as well. You get into a rhythmic rhythm of the breath and so on. And I just started to find a way forward. I wouldn't say I got the full picture, but it was always a stepping stone that would lead to something greater that ended up giving me the ability to move on in my journey in competition and so on. And even now, every single night I go up it's called the Cairngorm Mountains, and it's the most biggest, purest, most beautiful TV screen, if you like, in the world to me. I just go up there, I sit and I just watch the sunsets, the stars, the northern lights, and all this kind of stuff. And the sense of contentment and peace that it gives me allows me to be more present in myself. So, looking back at all those times, I guess it was that soul part of me that I was accessing that was giving me the inspiration to move forward in my journey as well. So it's still that part of me is still so much alive today.
Wonderful description, and very, very eloquent as well, Stephen. You always give such a rich tapestry to the stories that you tell, or even when I've seen you serve, by the way, it's something I really enjoy. I feel like I'm there for a moment as you're describing. So the snowboarding, yes, I've been curious about this, as you've seen probably on the channel. I've interviewed so many athletes from so many different sports, but when we're talking about this, I would like to touch on it briefly because people would be fascinated by the transition, if that's the right word, or the change
Yeah.
of life. But before we get to that, I would like to touch on some of the highlights of your experiences because we've touched on the challenging times there, the politics. Oh, people have no idea how much sports is a business, often more than a
Yes.
sport, which is very much the way I often sum it up for people. I say, well, you're watching this, but believe me, behind the scenes, it very
Yeah.
much is a business. But if we put that to one side for a moment and we talk about the positive experiences or some of the experiences that you look back on fondly now, I would like to touch on them because it's a relevant part of the context of your life.
Again, it's something else that's still so alive in me today, and that is the actual experience of snowboarding. Yes, the life it can give you and the journey it can give you, but without the experience and the purity with the exhilaration, the rest doesn't become alive. And say, for example, all those years ago, up in the Cairngorms here, there's this true saying: if you can ski in Scotland, you can ski anywhere, because of the all the rocks and the fences and the wind and the ice and just the conditions, that you got to put up with. But it is a beautiful space as well. You get an incredible conditions also. But anyway, and back then, it's like, again, when I was going through troubles, my life was going in different directions. Snowboarding saved me, really. And it wasn't always just, yes, the exhilaration of doing it, but just being there up in the mountain. I remember I used to work in split shifts in a kitchen as a kitchen porter. So I'd finish at 2 o'clock. I'd get all my gear on. I took my gear to work with me. I'd get all my gear, cycle my bike with my board to the end of the road, which is about a mile away. And then I'd hitch it up to the Cairngorm Mountains, and I'd spend all the rest of my money in anything I had. And I'd only get like 2 or 3 runs sometimes by the time I got up there. So money didn't have any value, but the experience of being there, it was worth every penny and every effort, just being there itself. But when you're actually snowboarding, in my experience, it is anything and everything in the world, any troubles do not exist apart from the pure exhilaration of being in that moment in time. And that's been all the way through the journey. And the journey, it's created so many experiences, but quite a lot, the people that I met, the traveling all around Europe, even although I had no money whatsoever. It's just I remember arriving back home here to Scotland and had 50 pence left in my pocket, and that was it, nothing else. And there was just, I stayed in a Ford Transit camper van I bought off of eBay for £1,000. I was sleeping in like -20 conditions. And but I tell you what, people might think I'm mad, but it was worth it. And yeah, just the. I mean, I love traveling anyway. It's just the mountains, the just the views in the Alps, and as I say, the people that you meet along the journey and the experiences that you can share with each other, but really diving deep beneath the surface of not just the actual going down the mountain kind of thing, but talking about each other's journey and how we actually came to be there, all the troubles that we faced, the politics that we faced, but the quality and time that we have with people we meet in life now, but back then it was just incredible. And another one, again, the financial thing was a trouble all the way through, because it wasn't always the best race I was able to get to to be able to gain the best points. It's more like what race could I afford to get to. And at one point, I was well, I've had 8 podiums, and about three, four, can't remember, three, I guess, British titles as well. Competed in the World Championships, but there I was, British champion, competed in the World Championships, and I had no money, nothing left afterwards. I had nowhere to go, and the governing bodies would not help me. That was me at home. But there's an anonymous, should I say, sponsor, that I was very honoured to be in the company with, and teach his son when I was out there at one point. I was telling him about my troubles, and he says, and he's got this motto: um, if someone's hungry, don't give them a fish, give them a fishing rod. So he says, well, if you manage to find, I should say, or create a certain amount, I'll match it. So that's what happened. So I went out into the papers and all this kind of stuff, and I eventually got some sponsorship. But then I got flown across back to France in his private jet as well. I mean, all these experiences from nothing to being with incredible people. But I remember on that plane, my board bag, I felt so guilty, because it wasn't a big, massive plane. And I had a big board bag. I had like four different boards in it, different boots, and buying all kinds of stuff. It was huge, and my guitar and my clothes, and it took up the whole of the aisle in this guy's plane. And I remember the captain and the people that were flying the plane. One of them would get up to serve some sandwiches and things, and they were trying not to trip over my bag. I was like, oh my goodness! But yeah, I mean that's only just a fraction of the experiences, just a tiny bit, and there's many spiritual experiences as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Stephen, one of the things I love about that story, not only the remarkable achievements, but it's so much deeper than that because, as you're saying there about the moments that you shared with people, and as you're saying there about the experiences of actually, being in the moment, being up mountains, being in the Alps, being in all of these things, I think that's very, very valuable. Spiritual lesson, life lesson of itself for people listening to this is to enjoy the actual moment because you learned that maybe the hard way, but you came out with sometimes with nothing from a certain perspective, but so much from another perspective. And
Yes.
I love that way of looking at it. I respect the hardships, but I also love the way you've described that. So when we come into the spiritual side of things more deeply, you mentioned earlier about the running up the mountains, the meditative
Mm.
state, and all of this kind of thing. I mean, was that something where your awareness of spirit, shall we say, began at that point, or did you have experiences earlier? I mean, I would just love to hear the opening up of your awareness, shall we
No.
say, of these kinds of things, please.
So the conscious opening up of my awareness was going through a difficult time when my brother passed to the spirit world in 2005, when I was out in France, and I'd just come back from Austria, and I was just sitting in my room, and I was phoning my my mum. There was no answer. Phoning my dad. There was no answer. Phoning my sister. There was no answer. And then I just knew. I mean, all this just happened. I didn't look for it or anything. My brother, I could say, just like again, the experience is so much more than words. He filled the room and where I was lying. I was lying in my bedroom at the time, and he filled the room with just the feeling and the emotion. I was like, oh my goodness, something's happened. And then a little while later, my dad called and said that my brother had been flown from Inverness to Aberdeen because he had a brain hemorrhage. And then so I flew home and sat by his bed for 2 days, and then yeah, he passed away. But through that experience was certainly an awakening, because many people that go through or come into this kind of awareness, it happens naturally to some people, and sometimes it's through a hardship, a grieving of some kind, may it be in life of like uh, separating from a partner, just difficulties. It doesn't always have to be the passing of somebody. It just moves you inwardly, soul searching, and in that process, um, I guess it's how we can come in harmony of some kind with that soul presence of us for it to then start to become alive and present itself and all the purities and beauties that it can bring with it. And there was a famous medium called John Edward. I just saw him on the telly, an American medium. And I was just, it was the first time I saw it, and it was just, I just really want to know how that works. I was just so fascinated. I mean, yes, I would like to speak to my brother and things like that, but that wasn't the full drive behind it. There was just this inner yearning of thirst of some kind. That's like just drawing me towards it. So I ordered his CDs and things like that. And I would go up this mountain again, and a different mountain, of course. And I could see right through the valley, and it was above all the treetops and things like that. And it was just a beautiful space. And I would sit on this bench and I'd try and follow, should I say, a meditation. And now being diagnosed with ADHD, I know why it was difficult then. So really, it's down to we'll go back and track in a second, but really, it's down to honouring our own true nature as a unique individual. And through the trying and trying to focus and create and visualize, it was causing such a strain in my awareness. But I didn't really realize at the time that it was actually was creating a space of focus, if you like. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to give up, and I took my headphones out and I just took a deep breath, and then all of a sudden the treetops, and it was again the experience is so much more than words. And the treetops in itself, it's like the breath, the wind that was causing all the patterns, bending all the tips of the trees, and the down below me and moving up the mountainsides and the heather, and all of a sudden all the clouds and all that, everything was all moving in harmony and in synchronicity, if that's the word, with together, if you like. And because of that, I was a part of it. I wasn't just looking at it and thinking about it, or even it was more than even feeling it. I was it. I was that, and it just gave me that realization, that awakening, if you like, that I am so much more than my physical body. And that's when the true healing started to take place, because there is a saying, heal the soul. For me personally, I don't believe that's true. I believe it's the purity and the beauty within the expression of the soul that heals the mind. It's that part that connects us to that life source that is beyond the physical also. And therefore, it brought my awareness again to another incredible medium called Tony Stockwell. And so I got his CDs as well. I've been in the company of this amazing guy so many times now. I had his CDs back then, and it was called "Healing the Wounded Soul" was the name of the CD. And there was one track, I think it was track 7 or 8, where you get to meet your loved ones. But prior to that, I had sat in a space, just concentrating on my breath, or say just listening to my breath for about an hour. And then when I put on that CD with Tony, it's like his voice went to a different room. I was aware of it, but it wasn't taking presidency within my awareness. It wasn't um yeah. And then I felt my brother come close, and his experience was so much more than the voice of Tony. I mean, it was there, but the experience that was happening completely captivated every single part of my being. But my brother came so close, and again, these words are, I can easily and honestly say they are no words to explain the closeness. 1,000 hugs in this life couldn't put together the true quality within the oneness, because he came so close. And his tears and my tears with his tears. And it's like certainly two souls as one. And usually when you meet someone, say if you, I don't know, just meet somebody or someone you miss, you would want to have a conversation with them consciously. Um, that's where our minds would go. But that wasn't even needed. Everything, again, there's no words. Everything was so complete in that moment in time, there wasn't even a word needed, given, nothing. Everything and anything I could ever want was there. And then as he started to withdraw, that's when the conversation of minds came in, where I saw awareness went to my sister, and then I saw my nephew, then I saw a rubber duck, and then awareness went to football. And of course, there's a part of me thinking, oh, I don't know what that means, just aware of it. And so I went to message my sister because she's open to this, and I know she wouldn't think I was mad. So I sent them her what I said, what the experience, and she says my nephew has just finished playing with his favourite rubber duck in the bath. Now he's sitting watching football with his dad, and that kind of shows a separate mind, improves a separate mind because it's not in the energy of somebody else. But at the same time, many people thought, "Oh, that's great evidence." It is, but that what doesn't even skiff the surface of that experience beforehand. And I guess in some way, um, yeah, that was the catalyst, if you like, of just yeah, that was the catalyst in some sense of moving my mind to be more professional, if you like, but also that soul searching, to become my soul, to honor my soul. And the more we do that, the more, this goes for everybody, the more we can honor that unique individual we are, the more freedom it has to express in our lives, move beyond the conscious mind to see beyond where we consciously can't see, as we give more trust to that experience. The more our lives evolves, the more we fulfill that part of us, and therefore we fulfill our lives. But anyway, I've been blethering away for a wee bit of you there. So
No, no, it's a beautiful description. Firstly, let me say that for experiences that are beyond words, and obviously, Stephen, as a spiritualist myself, as a medium, as a person with a similar awareness, I know exactly what you mean. But also for people hearing this who may not know, or maybe they've had that experience but they don't know what it is, you do a wonderful job of putting something so far beyond words, so kinesthetic, so um, the sense of the textures. And I often describe these things as you have to be aware of the different textures and so forth. It's just a wonderful, wonderful description. I love what you said there about the soul healing the mind. There's so many things contained even in that description. So
oh, thank
I
you.
thank you very much for that, and also for the vulnerability of sharing regarding your loss of your brother, because as we've established there, the aspect of it being a loss is a matter of perspective because he's close to you now. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, I respect that very, very much. So as we move forward into your development, the reason that I want to sort of dig a little deeper into this subject is for people to trust the unique expression. Oh, and that's the other thing that you do very well, by the way, Stephen, is I heard you speak on that service with my mum, and I thought, wow, I mean, there's nobody else like you in the sense that each of us is a unique individual, but you really embrace that very well. And that was actually the nudge, by the way, that I felt to reach out to you today, just so you know that was that whole embodiment of your soul. Maybe it's a work in
Thank you.
progress for you. Maybe you're very established in that. I really don't know, but I felt that feeling. Anyway, that's off topic. So as we go into your development of service, and this question isn't really about the demonstrations and the outward appearances of all these things, although we can certainly mention those. But really, it's you delving deeper in your search, your experiences, after having these experiences with your brother, with the rubber duck, the football, listening to Tony, all of this kind of thing. There was obviously that decision of, okay, I'm going to go deeper into this. I'm going to find out what it means, or more than what it means. The nudge I'm getting here is what it means for you, and therefore that will encourage other people to find what it means for them through the illustration of your process, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Because some people would have backed away and thought, okay, this is too much for me. Maybe if I bring this up, people will think I've lost my marbles, or whatever, and people do feel that. And that's why I'm asking, Stephen, is just to give the relatability that you obviously took some steps forward at your own pace. And I feel it's valuable for people to hear kind of what those steps were, if that makes sense with where I'm going with this.
Okay. What these steps were is, again, it's that inner calling, that soul calling, and you know, it's so hard to again to put into words. But I just got so hyper focused on the whole subject of it because it was just so amazing. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't stop. It always unfolds, always and always and always, because through the natural world of cause and effect, our soul is always evolving. It just depends on how much we become aware of that to be able to walk with it, walk hand in hand with it, to find its own unique expression through us. May that be an artist, may that be at being an amazing mum, may that be just doing so good at what you do, at what you love, should I say. I mean, many people, and I mean this no disrespect, that a little bit blinded from the true qualities of life in that respect. I should say from that perception. And it's not wrong because we're living in a material world, we love the material stuff also. But if we can um, are able to honor that unique expression with us, it shows us what is truly valuable, what truly is um, yeah, valuable, what matters in life, should I say. Many times, when we talk about um, those that have passed the spirit world, they have like a life review, if you like. And if we can, because you get to see within a moment of all your what we could have done better, but also all the good stuff as well. And many times I've had people in the spirit world wanted to come back in some sense to say, look, I'm so sorry, but I'm here now. I'm the dad that you want me to be now. That kind of things. And again, if we're um, able to find our own way, because it's not always about the world of mediumship. It's about having a good quality of life, because we talk about the philosophy. And I believe that everyone has a philosophy, and that is your soul's perception upon life. And sometimes it's so hard as a unique individual to fit within the framework and the minds of so many other people. And we try so hard to do that without truly honouring ourselves. And there's that saying, if you're in the crowd, you'll go no further than the crowd. But if you honour yourself as that unique individual, you get to shine your own light. Therefore, you become more present and visible to others. But this is a really nice saying. The more your light shines, the more shadows you'll cast. Meaning, you don't have to please everybody in life. And again, it's that personally, it was that part that stopped me, that has been holding me back. What would other people think? Because I'm living in a little village in the Highlands, there's not so much of it around here. And then there's that, it's like, um, yeah, all these people that I've known all my life that know me from in a different way, if you like. But the more I'm starting to honor myself, but yes, not going out there to say, I'm this medium and you need to believe what I believe. It's not that. it's being the silent observer of life in itself, and and I guess being quiet in it speaks louder than words, because therefore it allows the purity in that expression of who you are as a unique individual, um, to you see what is pure. When we see what is pure in life, we see what is true. When we see what was true, we see how it's true to you as a unique individual. And I guess through that authenticity, that's the word I'm looking for, about being the authentic you. And if you are able to do that for yourself, not just to be present for others, and then it shines its light upon many other people, to be able to inspire them, which I would hope to shine their own light to do it themselves. I think if we tried to fit within the framework of the thinking of other people all the time, we're restricting ourselves in such a big way. So I know I'm going round the houses here a little bit, but the and but yeah, what it means to me is just being me. I would say being the true me, and therefore the influence. I mean, um, let me try to explain it. The more we honour ourselves, as I say, the soul's always evolving. Therefore, that's why it brings to light the mind, even to those in the spirit world, all the wrongs and the rights and so on, because that power, that presence is so pure. We can't help but not see it. And if we're able to see that in this life, and then we would have so many less regrets, if you like, and therefore without having to accepting others, honouring others, but without having to please them in that respect, because their journey is their own unique journey, depending where they are in that journey of life. It's yeah, we don't have to fit within the framework of others. That's what I'm trying to say. Therefore, your own unique light is that part of you that will bring your authenticity, your purity, what is true to you as a unique individual, and you will have. You remember you said so kindly of how I was presenting stuff before, and to me personally, that's the soul presence. And within the soul presence itself, it gives life to words, it gives more meaning to words. Say for a spiritual service, for example, the philosophy, if you like, or even in the demonstration, everyone there brings something so beautiful and so pure. As I mentioned before, that's that life force within them, that soul presence. And if we're able to honor ourselves, that becomes alive in the room, embraces everybody there, harmonizes just like a musical instruments all coming together to be the one band to dance within the rhythm of life together. And through that journey, that service, if you like, it's something that can touch everybody. And if you, as a unique individual, are able to honor yourself in that, you will touch others beyond measure without even knowing it.
That is a beautiful description.
Thank you.
An experiential. No, really. I mean, I really mean it. I know you've said a couple of times that you're worried about, like, are you going off on tangents and things, but definitely not. I mean, there's so much contained within what you're saying there, and it actually makes complete sense in the simplicity of the experience,
Mm,
but the fact that the experience is something that you do obviously have to experience. And to be honest, even when I said these kind words, I mean it, because when we shared presence on that Zoom with my
mm,
mum and everything, I really felt touched in that sense by your presence, in the sense that I came away with these thoughts of thinking, wow, okay, for example, something that I'm working on, or I've been working on I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but I'll share one thing with you is gentleness not being a weakness, for example. Okay,
Hmm.
it's a very simple concept, but it's something where I saw you serve and I thought, wow, I mean, this guy, you're very gentle and softly spoken, and you have this lovely, caring energy, but you're still strong and you still carry, as not only on a personal level, but even the power of spirit, if you like, in terms of the power of the touch, the power of the experience, the textures, all of these things. And I thought, wow, what a lovely balance, kind of like the yin and yang concept, or that's not a very good example, but that kind of thing of almost, you could almost say a masculine and feminine energy, I suppose, from a certain perspective. Like,
Yeah,
wow, that's a lovely, lovely feeling. And it's something that I've been working on. So without getting a message, if you like, I got exactly what I've been working on from your spirit. And that was only a small part of it. I mean, there were so many other things that you represented, but I share that only as an example of how just from being in the presence of spiritual people, if you like, or people who've tapped into this greater consciousness, you get an experience even from that. But it's a very powerful lesson. So it doesn't slip my mind, Stephen. Something else that I feel is of value to people listening to this. The whole ADHD thing you mentioned earlier, the reason I bring this up is kind of twofold. It's a great subject anyway, even if you just look at the physicality of the brain, acceptance, this subject plays into the uniqueness that we've been talking about. But I also noticed that people of a more neurodivergent nature, as I am also, by the way, are, shall we say, there seems to be a larger number of them that are able to connect with spirit, connect with the divine or the larger consciousness. Now, it's not to say that you have to have that to be able to connect. I'm not saying that because, as you've already said, everyone has a unique expression. But I have noticed that correlation, and I'm curious with you as to to hear more about your ADHD journey and how you've been navigating your unique self and basically working with your own brain, working with your own modes of awareness, this kind of thing, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because you said earlier about, for example, your style of meditation. That's a great illustration. You were struggling to meditate one way, but obviously you get into the calm state of connecting with spirit very well. But when you were trying to fit in someone else's box of, being totally still and all of this, it wasn't working for you. So I think that's a really good kind of subject. I don't have a specific question, but it's a good subject to kind of delve into because I feel that will really help people. So may we discuss that a little bit, please?
yeah, absolutely. At this moment in time, it's still um, being understood, being managed, and to give the complete truth of it all is all those years ago, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I didn't know it was there or anything like that. And it was just recently, should I say, the last 6 years, when life had changed in a different way. Therefore, because of that, there's certain restrictions, if you like, where I wasn't able to um, feed and fulfill the ADHD part of me is when it started to make itself a lot more present. And therefore, it's been hard, obviously, in many ways, because it's not just hard on me, it's those around me that I love so, so dearly. And sometimes, as we look at it, many people can look at it in different perspectives of, why would you do that? Just think of it this way. But sometimes in our mind at the time, you should say it, we got no choice but to feel it that way and to because it's in our true nature, it's who we are, it's in our genetics and everything about it. And all those years ago, And I wondered why all those years ago as well. And now I know is well, I sit in the presence every single day, and if I don't, that I'm not present in myself as much. Therefore, it's the physical part of me. You know, it's like the lights are on, but there's nobody home in some way. But although I'm there, obviously, but through there's an edginess, should I say? I guess that's that hyperactive part of you. And when I sit in the presence every morning for about an hour, and during that time, it's not, oh, I don't sit there, visualize and create. I just sit and I give time. And that's simply that. Listen to a certain piece of music that helps my awareness feel just relaxed a little bit. Sometimes it could be just like spiritual music. However, you're able to influence or give freedom to that expression within us. Because for me, music itself is something that really touches my heart, touches my soul, touches the world, you know, because everyone loves it. But I found that through that language of expression, my soul is able to weave within the language of music, the expression of music that I listen to embrace my emotions and so on, to bring my awareness into a space of contentment, if you like, that's a better way to put it. And therefore, in that contentmentness, I'm able to see the world a lot more clearly. And therefore, it's it's just when it was just the other day, actually, about a week ago, roughly, I got my official diagnosis, and I would say for it's a good um, what's the right word I'm looking for? I don't know if it representation. I don't know if that's the right word. That nobody has to be the same as somebody else, and when we look at meditation, for example, this isn't wrong. Many people say still the mind, but you try telling that to my brain, eh? It's it's because it's that thoughts that jump all over the place because that source of inspiration is so hyperactive. All these ideas come into my mind, all the emotion and the drive behind it, the inspiration behind it. But I guess if we can look at it as a superpower in that respect. But therefore, what I would say to those ADHD, neurodivergent or not, what is your superpower? And that's just simply being you and honoring your true nature, your true nature, and find what works for you. There's this incredible medium. She's been known as one of the world's most knowledgeable mediums, sadly to us in the spirit world. But I was in the company of this lady for many, many times. And her name is Mavis Patilla. And many people might have heard of the Arthur Findlay College, and she was the first senior tutor as Arthur Findlay passed away and left his big, beautiful mansion, if you like, to the Spiritualist National Union to progress in the within the investigation of mediumship and so on. But this lady, she was there before even the maid had moved out, if you like, before there was even electricity in the building. So she has touched on mediumship, so everything, so in so many different ways. But anyway, getting to what I was trying to say is she found her connection by doing the ironing, you know? And it doesn't matter how crazy it might sound. I'd say to those, like, what is yours? Is it walking along the beach, looking out into the distance to where you can't see any further? Therefore, as you're gazing into that distance and you can't see so much that kind of takes away the um, the physical stimulus of other things around you and all the time taking up your attention. Therefore, it allows when in that space of contemplation for contentment, happiness, that soul presence to be alive. Even, I mean, you are everything and everything. You're a part, you are an expression of life weaved within its beauty. Therefore, you're beautiful, it's yourself. And then it's just that in that realization of it, I guess. And I know I'm going off on a little tangent again, but the ADHD thing, and going back to that, personally, maybe looking at medication. When I mean the health service, the National Health Service here is it's not so good for it just now, should I say? So it's about managing it, and that is honouring my true nature in myself. Therefore, I honour my mediumship in that respect because mediumship in itself, it's not just about saying hi and not devaluing that hi, I've got your mum here, and all the beauty that that holds. It is a part of you, that natural expression of life within you. Therefore, when your life changes, so does your mediumship. Your mediumship will never stay the same. It always evolves because the soul is always evolving and embracing the world of mediumship around you with it. And if we can walk with that, honor that in itself, and it's again, it's not always about standing up to say, "Hi, I've got your mum here." It could be just in your own personal connection to say, "Hi, brother. Hi, mum. Hello, my son, my daughter, my grandfather, whoever. I'm here and I spend this time with you." And if you can just give time for that, just relax without looking for it over time, um, they will also find their way in how to blend and harmonize through your mind. And I guess that the more we understand ourselves inwardly, the more you'll understand your own connection to what is real, what is our own mind, and so on. So I guess I know I've gone off on one again a little bit, but yeah, that's where I am now.
It makes sense. I know that there's no need to apologize. I mean, actually, as I've said before, I feel that you're a very eloquent speaker, and we are also tackling very far-reaching subjects here. So we're doing very well, and there's no need
Okay.
to apologize there. The last thing I'd like to touch on before we wrap this up, as what I
Mm-hmm.
feel and drawn to as a nice closing point here is there's another aspect to mediumship that I've observed from being around it for a while, and you touched on this earlier actually, which is very simply put like this. Somebody who was a quote unquote a bad person, in other words, somebody who took cruel actions or did whatever they did has to come.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, they want to come back and apologize. However, you're talking about uniqueness, and I've observed that any spirit who didn't follow their unique tapestry, their unique texture, their unique expression of the soul, as we've been speaking about
Mm-hmm.
today, generally speaking, seems to need to come back and fix it, if you like, for want of a better
Yeah.
term. Because we look at somebody who is, say, an unkind person or whatever, and generally speaking, that's not really them, is it? I mean, that's something that's happened to them, usually some trauma, some issue
Mm.
that's not perhaps not been managed correctly. And uh, in order to try and share that message, I've interviewed a number of people on here, including people who used to be criminals and now work with the youth and all sorts of things to try
Mm-hmm.
and show people, look, this is not the person, this is something defining them. Take that a stage further. The question here is not only for bad people, but for anyone. We can learn from the lessons of those who've gone before us to to live our lives differently. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
how many people have you heard in services come back and say, look, I never told my children I love them or my partner or whoever it was. I'm saying it now. And that's good that we have that opportunity. It's a good idea to say it while you're here as well.
Mm,
So one of the things that I feel drawn to today, Stephen, is the fact that the evolution of mediumship isn't so much what happens when we die, but very much what happens when we live or how we live, and as you've already been talking about. But to close out with this, and bear in mind this isn't entirely me, this is a nudge of of spirit, I think, is to say, or I suppose the question here, the best way to ask it is, what are your thoughts on learning from the people, not just knowing they're there, because a lot of people take comfort in knowing that they're with us and stop at that point. But in my view, it then goes a stage further where we can actually change our trajectory, if you like, in this life
mm.
by following the path of those who've gone before. That's the feeling I get to mention to close out with, and I think it follows on very well from your concept of the uniqueness. But it's a big topic. I'm sorry, but what are
That's
your
okay.
thoughts on that?
And what do you mean in learning to become a good person? Is that what you're touching
I think
upon?
so, or more than become a good person. In other words, I've observed that when you're saying about your unique self, we live our life as our unique self as much as possible.
Mm,
And as you said earlier, we share that light with others to inspire them to become their unique self and so on and
hmm.
so forth,
Yeah, yeah.
their unique soul. But my question is, I have noticed every time a spirit, as in someone who's passed over, doesn't do that, and they don't live their life authentically, they seem to have to come back and fix it
Hmm.
in some way.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say fix it, but they seem to have
yeah.
to come back and have some influence, not just to say, hi, I'm here, but to say, okay, I didn't say, for example, I didn't say I love you. That's not authentic. I mean, the expression of the soul, that person's soul would be to give that love to, say, their children.
Mm.
So, my question is, how we can use the lessons of those who come before us, our relatives or the people we've heard, to live differently
Okay. Yeah,
in
yeah.
our life.
Well,
That's what I'm drawn to ask you, and
okay.
I don't
Well,
really know
I
where
can,
that's coming
I
from.
can, you touched on a really good subject there as well because I've personally, it's happened in my life now also with a family member too, where yeah, that person is yeah. I'll not go into all the difficulties that that person's created, but what we can do is certainly um, honor our true nature, as I mentioned before, and sometimes I would say, I mean, this is just going from experience. It's like you can only do so much to help somebody as well. But then you ask yourselves how much is to the detriment of your own being in some way. And sometimes it's just then um, to be, yeah, how much would you want to put yourself through whatever is going on with that person, you see. As I mentioned before, as I said, it's your own unique journey and so on. But they have their own personal responsibility as well. They have a different perspective, perception upon life. And sometimes, depending on their, in my experience, try to find the right words here, and try and look at it as spiritual, in a spiritual nature, is um, we can't change everybody, but we can change ourselves. That's what I would say. I think just those simple words. And as I mentioned before, being that authentic you, that soul presence of you speaks louder than words, where no words are even needed. You know, my mum just recently passed to the spirit world in December, and whenever I was going through stuff, I would just go and sit with her, have a cup of tea. And I didn't have to tell or say all the hardships that were happening. It was just being in the presence of that person. And sometimes just being the authentic you, being kind in that respect, you are being there for others. Um, yeah, I mean, it's every situation um, with hardship, it's hard to speak for everyone in that respect because many people, as you say, has been criminals and things that have done so many wrong things. But that's what I was going to say. We can't change them. We might by being the authentic you, but in time, no matter what, my belief, my understanding is they will change, whether it is in this life or the spirit, or should I say the. And when I say the spirit world, it's not like a different place. It's a different state of consciousness already within us and around us. It's always there. And therefore, the more that's why it is natural law. The more we look inwardly, the more we become aware of it and the evolving soul and so on. Because I was mentioning that soul is always evolving. When we move to the spirit world, whatever physical could be physical conditions going on there, you see, not being looked at from the right um, um, medical perspective and so on. But then when we let go of that, I guess we're not restricted by the physical body. Therefore, the soul expression itself, because it's pure, that's why it brings that reality to our awareness, that all the wrongs and rights. So sometimes, even if those people, like, we wish we might want to change somebody, but no matter what, over time, that will happen, whether it's in this life or the next life. What I would say is, I'm just repeating myself, but honor yourself in your own true nature. Try not fit within the framework of other people's thinking. And by doing that, you're honoring your authentic self to bring empathy and kindness with you, through you. Therefore, again, it touches others without even trying. And therefore, that might be the catalyst, the seed that you drop within the presence of somebody else, the energy of somebody else, for them to then nourish and think, oh my goodness, that person touched something within me. What was that? Brings them into a space of soul searching and realization of, oh my goodness, what have I been doing? I need to change. I can do better. And I think everyone in this life is trying to find a part within them. Some people are more blinded to it than others, where I guess in some sense I'm honoured through my hardships and so on, and many others are too, like yourself, I guess, that we can be aware of that and know that and grow with that. I don't think I've got a true defined answer, but I hope in some way that I've kind of touched upon it in some sense.
Very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, even the concept of what you are sharing there about being, well, it sounds quite cliche. It's become quite cliche as a quote, but being the change that you want to see in the world is
That's it.
actually
That's it.
100% true. It's one of my favorite sayings, and it's really what you're saying there. And the good thing today, Stephen, we've touched on a few different topics here, and it's enough for people to be able to take in and practically apply, which is important to me. It's enough
Mm.
for that. I'm sure we've only scratched the surface in many ways of your understanding, and I know that I can feel that we've overcome a lot more even than we've talked about today, but it's not relevant for today. What's relevant is what we've shared, and I just hope, as we've said, that that message reaches people about the uniqueness. And even if we have looked at it a few different ways, like a diamond has different sides, that's fine, because then each side will stand out or be right for different people from the different perspectives that you've shared that message. And you shared a lot of other wonderful things as well, but particularly that core message of the authentic expression is very powerful, very meaningful. And I've never really heard it described in that depth or that clarity that you've described it today, in all honesty. A lot of people say, well, you need to be yourself and find a way of expressing your soul, expressing your authentic self, but I've never heard it explained in the wider context that we've touched on today. So that is a
Oh,
wonderful
thank you.
message, wonderful stories that you shared as well that I think people can take some relatable insights from. So all in all, really, really nice talk. And as I've said already, it's been a pleasure for me because I enjoy your presence, to be honest, the energy,
Oh,
the
thank
feeling
you.
around you and
I've
talking with
enjoyed
you.
being here.
That's so have I.
Absolutely.
So have I. It's been a wonderful pleasure. And once again, thank you so, so much,
Oh,
Stephen. Thank
thank
you.
you. And thank you, everybody, whoever listens to this, if you got to the end.
I'm sure they did. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.